Mabuhay! Welcome to Positively Pinoys podcast. Ito ang mga kwento at inspirasyon ng mga OFWs at Global Pinoys saan man sila sa mundo. Hello! I'm Dinah and welcome to Positively Pinoys Season 2. As you can see, for this season, medyo nag-level up na po tayo. May pa-video na po ang Positively Pinoys podcast. So if you wanted to listen and watch this episode or the future episodes of Positively Pinoys podcast, you can download and watch it over YouTube. Kung gusto niya man audio lang, you can download and listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcast, or wherever you listen a podcast na bet nyo. Kasi, syempre, medyo nag-level up na po. So if you're a first-time listener, Positively Pinoys is a product of something, a personal project of mine during COVID. Pero medyo na siya, I took a pause kasi nga COVID kind of finished and then syempre I have my own day job. So parang ang hirap siyang i-balance. But now I feel like it's really time for me to revisit this blog because I believe na through the stories and the journeys of the Filipino OFWs na makakausap ko, na ma-interview ko, I hope that you can find inspiration from their life stories, from their journey as an OFW abroad. And really, my intention is to really give guidance and kahit man lang kaunting tulong na whatever journey or whatever life you're taking as an OFW, or maybe you're still thinking to leave the country and work abroad. Hopefully, this podcast can be your avenue to guide you, to inspire you, to help you through the stories of the people I am featuring in this podcast. For the first ever season of Season 2, I am going to share my own journey kung paano ba ako naging teacher dito sa Paris. Like, how did I end up finding a job or taking the job as a teacher or as a Filipino teacher here in Paris. Okay? So if this is something that you want to listen and you want to take inspiration from, just continue to like, share, and subscribe. Alam nyo na, the Positively Pinoys podcast. Okay? For this, I have my own notes here para wala akong makalimutan. For this episode, I'm going to talk about 8 things. Okay? Number 1, yung legalities and visa. Okay? Number 2, about credentials and experiences. Number 3, where did I look for the teaching job? Number 4, what's the hiring process like? Paano ba sila mag-hire ng isang teacher? Number 5 is, what's the school environment and students like? Okay? So number 6, the team, the teachers, and how they manage. And number 7 is, of course, I want to talk to you about the salary, the benefits of being a teacher here. And lastly, my word of advice if you want to look for a job or become a teacher here in Paris or here in Europe. And hopefully, this will give you ideas kung madali ba siya or hindi. Okay? So number 1, let's talk about legalities and visa. Okay. So this is very important. Kasi in order for you to work here as a teacher, you really need to have a valid EU working permit. Okay? EU working permit. In my case, I have a valid EU working permit called titre de séjour, or like a resident visa. That's because I am married to a French man, also known as Frenchie. Okay? To most of my friends, he is known as Frenchie. So Frenchie and I, actually, we got married here sa France or sa province nila in 2018. That kind of automatically gave me the opportunity na
I can live here, I can work here. But I only moved here in 2019. Right after I moved here, everything, that's another kind of process. Pero eventually, I have a valid EU working permit. So, naging madali din sa akin to look for jobs. Okay? Very, very important, you need to have a valid EU working permit. Kasi syempre, without that, they don't know where to submit your tax payments or your social security and all of that stuff. So it's really important. Okay, let's talk about credentials and experiences. Ano nga ba? At first, when I came here, medyo may inhibitions ako kasi I was thinking that this is Paris, this is Europe, this is different. Parang feeling ko yung standard nila when it comes to white collar job is very high. Thankfully, I have a very good friend who advised me na given my experiences, I am very much hireable or pasok na pasok ako sa kung ano man yung gusto kong gawin, especially if I want to really teach here in Paris. Okay, paano ko na, how did I do it? Okay, first and foremost, meron dito sa France yung website na ENIC, which is ENIC. This is actually like a website where you submit your diploma, your transcript of records, or any kinds of certificate, and then they will evaluate those credentials that you submitted according to the French standard or criteria. Everything is online. I think there was some kind of payment, I'm not sure, but it's called ENIC. If you have all your diploma, your credentials, your certificates, you just need to submit it over in ENIC, and then they will evaluate kung saang criteria or standard your diploma or your transcript of records fall para they can evaluate na, oh, okay, you can work at this job or you're capable of working. Okay? When I came here in 2019, I already had 15 years of teaching experience abroad. So, actually, yung 15 years na yon, 3 years was in the Philippines, 8 years was in China, and then 4 years in Brazil. For my work, talagang I am certified English teacher. I also have a certificate of TEYL, which is Teaching English to Young Adult. TEYL stands for Teaching English to Young Learners. So parang equivalent siya sa TOEFL. When you want to teach English abroad or to any non-English speaking countries, they're looking for a TOEFL certificate para na you're capable of teaching a lesson or a class. So in my case, I have a certificate in TEYL. I also have a teaching certificate back in the Philippines. So I'm a board passer / certified professional teacher. And also I have a Montessori certificate. So I took trainings for Montessori 3 to 6 and 6 to 12. So all of those, naging ano siya, parang it helped me to find a job here easily, or at least an English teaching job here in Paris very easily. So at first I was worried and hesitant to apply, but then it just came like, no, I am actually capable, and at the same time, all my credentials are good and all my certificates are good and my experiences. So, kasi usually the schools are looking for at least 3 years of teaching experience before they hire you. So in my case, I already had 15 years prior when I was looking for a job here. Okay, so where did I look for jobs or teaching jobs? First and foremost, I started in networking sa Facebook, expat. Because I lived in China, I lived in Brazil, I even lived a year in the US. I learned this very early on in my expat living life na it's very, very important to network with your fellow foreigners. I think this is something na as Filipinos, we really need to learn from. Kasi I know naman, I understand na when you come to a country as a Filipino, automatically yung hinahanap mo na group is Filipino, which is good. Okay, hindi naman siya masama. But then, parang nalilimit lang kasi yung opportunities or yung kaalaman mo sa within your group or groups of Filipinos na kilala mo. So parang nalilimit din yung opportunities of work na parang hindi mo alam na may possibility pala na you can work a more better job, parang ganun. So in my case, when I came here, I barely know anyone, but I did networking within the Facebook expat group of Paris. So I truly believe na if you have anything you want to know to a country na first time mong manirahan, you have to ask your fellow expat kasi alam nila yung pinagdadaanan mo. They went exactly to the same kind of journey, if not very similar. So that's what I did. So when I came here, I started to ask about what is it like about the English teaching culture here. May market ba siya? Is it possible to work here as a foreigner or as someone? When I came here, I did not speak any French. So that's how I knew, based from their comments, based from their advice, I was kind of, how would I say, I felt relieved and at the same time confident na, okay, I can find an English teaching job in the city. So that's what I did first. And then because of that networking that I did within the expat group on Facebook, I was able to find a very small teacher community. So through them, I attended some events, like teacher events, and then I met them face to face. And then when I met them face to face, I was not scared to ask questions. I was curious. The thing is that you have to put yourself out there as well, especially if you're here for the first time. I know it can be a bit intimidating, especially parang, I think for me, thankfully, I have years of experience like living in China, living in Brazil, living in the US. So parang I had that confidence and experience na it's okay to ask questions to other people. It's not that embarrassing. Kasi usually pag tayong mga Pinoy parang nahihiya pa tayong mag-ask ng question. But all these years that I've been living abroad, I learned na the more questions you ask, the better. Kasi marami kang malalaman and hopefully with all those questions that you've been asking, may opportunities na darating para sa'yo. And true enough, I was able to find my own teacher tribe, my own small teacher community. So through them, I knew about ano ba yung parang culture ng English teaching hiring dito. And then like, where do I have to submit my applications? So they would tell me na there are actually two ways. There is a public and private schools here in Europe or in France in general. So they said na it's easier to actually apply for a teaching job straight to a school. Kasi kung public school, iba naman yung hiring process nila. Kasi may examinations, parang you have to undergo several interviews, and like hiring process is very different. Kasi parang automatically you're kind of a public servant or a civil servant. So iba yung if you want to apply for a teaching job in a public school. So from my teacher tribe, I learned that I just need to look into the school websites if they're looking for teachers there or what. So that's what I did. And then the second one, also through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has also this option that if you're looking for a job, you can change your status or something like that, which means that schools or HR people in the education industry can hire you or you can submit your applications through them. So that's on LinkedIn. But ultimately, the ones that I end up working with, I found them on Indeed.fr. So Indeed.fr is a website where you can basically find jobs or services. They have almost like 10 to 15 job postings a day. So if you're really looking for a certain job in a certain industry, that might be also helpful for you. Doon, I found my job on Indeed FR. And at the same time, I also submitted some of my applications through the school's website. But I look into private schools, not into public schools. So usually, the ones that I submitted applications to are private bilingual schools. So which means they have an English program already in their schools. Okay? So that's where I look for my job. Okay, so after that, what's the hiring process like? It's very different. Okay, so first and foremost, disclaimer. When I came here, I did not speak any French. My misconception na you can only find job when you speak French. When actually, in my case, that was not really kind of looked into. I don't know. But I was fortunate na they hired me based from my experience, based from what I can contribute to the team, even though I cannot speak French at the time. But anyway, so what's the hiring process like? It depends. As I've said, like I submitted my application directly to the school websites. I also submitted some through LinkedIn, and the one that is really like the one who hired me was through Indeed FR. And then, of course, they will look into your CV and all that. So they are the ones who will call you to consider you for the job. And so they will have you interview you one on one. So usually in these cases, it's the headmaster first. And then when they feel like you seem to be the person they're looking for, they will ask for another interview to meet the team or the teachers you're going to work with. So that's what happened to me. I went to several interviews, and then usually after the first interview, my second interview, until the third interview is almost like giving a contract and whatnot. But yeah, the first interview usually is with the headmaster telling you about the job, showing you around the school, and just giving you like an insight of what's the school environment like, what's the school culture like, parang ganon. I also did teaching demo when they feel like I'm the right fit for them. They would ask me for a teaching demo, which I did. So ultimately, actually, I was considered on my first job search, I was considered by 3 schools, and probably I submitted a handful of around 12 CVs to 12 different schools or something like that. So I ended up having an offer from 3 different schools. In my second job hunting as well, ganon din. Actually, on my second job hunting, I already knew what I like. I already knew very straightforward na, okay, this is something that I want to see or I wanted to experience in the team or in the school culture. So parang ganon. But anyway, in the end, it's really is about how you feel for each other. If you're really fit for each other, you're very straightforward. Like they will tell you, this is your role. This is what we're looking for. And you seem to be qualified for this role, given your experiences, blah, blah, blah. And so if you feel like this is also something you're looking for, this is what we can offer you, all those things, then if you feel right for us, then we feel right for you. Ganun sila. Very straightforward. Walang keme. Yeah. So that was the hiring process like. Okay, now, what's the school environment and students like in Paris? So I'm just, with this one, disclaimer, I only worked so far with 2 schools. On my first school, it was a Montessori school, and my students were elementary age. They were like around 6 to 12 years old. In the elementary age, it was from 8:30 to 5, and then I have a 1-hour break. For elementary age students, there's no nap time, but there is a break after their lunch, more like a reading, like calming down time. That's it. The school year is from September to July, and we have 4 different term breaks, which is almost like a 1-month paid vacation. So my term break, 2 weeks of term breaks during autumn, 2 weeks of term break during Christmas, 2 weeks of term break during winter season. That's when they wanted to go skiing and all that. And then there's the 2 weeks term break during spring, like around Easter. And then obviously the 2-month summer vacation. So in my first job, I was very happy about it because it was a Montessori school. Everything was Montessori set up, the pedagogy, the curriculum, everything. I liked it. But what I don't like about it is that I know deep inside my heart, I'm not really happy with teaching elementary age children. I was happy for my first 2 years, pero like on this third, fourth year, parang na-realize ko na elementary age children are not really my forte. Because like, the thing with me is that elementary age children are a little more, they're more mature slash they're more independent on their own as compared to what I really love, which is preschool age children, so around 3 to 5 years old. So there was a huge contrast to me. And so I realized na hindi pala talaga ako for elementary age children. So that's why I decided to look for another job after my 4 years in a Montessori school. So in the Montessori school, the children are more independent. They know what they want to do. They're very focused on what they wanted to achieve in their everyday lesson and whatnot. But they love the English lesson that I did because it was sort of different from a very uh like just go and pick whatever you want to work on in Montessori. So yeah, anyway. And on my second school, which is a bilingual preschool, or it's called maternelle, my age group was the PT section. So they're like around 3 going into 4 years old. So they're very young, and half of the class were still into potty training. So they would still come to the classroom with their diapers and all that. It was a bit hard for me kasi actually for the whole year, I feel like I was more of a nanny than a teacher. Kasi I was working with my French counterpart. So we're the 2 adults in the classroom with 16 children. But it was so different to navigate it and very challenging kasi like when someone had to do number 2, you really have to be there for the child, to change nappy and everything. And then you have to be careful of what happens to the other children that you kind of like left behind while you're doing or helping the child who needs your help. So it was very, very challenging. And it's actually the first ever school na I was teaching the same age children in China and in Brazil. And in China and Brazil, we have a third adult that is basically her role is to help these types of situation in the classroom. They're literally like the helper aide in the classroom to take care of these kinds of situation, or like preparing the food or preparing tables, beds, chairs, whatever. But in my case, when I worked in the preschool last year, it was all our duty. It was all our work to do. So it was too much. Like, ooh, very, very hard. And I thought like I was able to kind of find my way in, but still very difficult. So, yeah, iba. Iba siya. More hard work dito sa maternal, sa preschool. Kasi super on our own, just the two adults, the teacher adults, walang helper, walang aid in the classroom. So, which is even, I feel like, 10 times tiring than just being a teacher or preparing your class or organizing your lesson. Really difficult. So that was that. Anyway, I would say that the work here compared to my work in the Philippines, my work in China and in Brazil, oh, it's very hard. In the Philippines, in China, in Brazil, kasi in the Philippines, with my preschool, I only teach them for 3 hours. And 1 hour of that is just already like, for break time, for snacks, for flag ceremony or morning activity or sport activity. And then 2 full hours is for teaching. And then after that, they go home. Wala ka ng problema. Yung ganon. But here, with my maternal class, it's like from 8:30 to 4:30. So all day long, yan ang ginagawa mo with very little help or very little, almost no assistance actually at all, because you just have to do what you had to do. Yeah, that was that. So the students, compared to what I had in Brazil, in China, and the Philippines, obviously, they're children. They're very similar in characters. They're very loving. They're very like sweet. And the older children are obviously a little bit stubborn sometimes and can be a bit challenging and naughty, but that's it. So what I like with my experience here is like on my first 4 years was Montessori. So it's more like really student centered. The students are more quiet, more present. It was an amazing experience for me because it really nurtures independent work. But then with my preschool age children, I mean, they're cute, they're loving, I love it. But again, like the work was just very, very challenging because I have to do so much outside of my teaching, which is not really what I was hoping to see. But all in all, the students are all loving, they're all cute, they're all very sweet. If you're asking about the curriculum of the English program, the schools have very, different things. Usually they have their own yearly program and yearly themes. They will tell you this is what our program is going to be like for this year or what the theme like to be this year. And usually they would give you a guidance of, okay, this is the theme, so let's work around here. Say, for example, if it's animals, you work around animals and all that. So yeah, in a way, you still have a creative control of your lessons, of your program, but then you still have to go with the school or the school year curriculum has to be. Like you have to collaborate with how it is in overall. So that was that about the curriculum. Okay. Teaching, team, management, and collaboration. Since I came here in Paris, it has been a very challenging thing to be a first year teacher in a school, regardless if you're an experienced teacher or not. Kasi, syempre, when you come in a school, when you come into a new place, kumakapa ka pa eh, 'di ba? Parang you have to I feel like they tend to see na you have no idea about the environment. You have no idea of like where to find certain things in the school, in your classroom, all these things. Because you're new. You have no idea. You're still navigating, you're still adapting to your new environment. You're also like your new student. You had no clue, although again, you have years of experience of teaching. But if you're put into an environment that you have no idea where things are, what materials, all these things, you need to factor that in. And based from my experience, I have yet to experience a very supportive and guiding team or management. In fairness, probably it has also a challenge because I didn't speak French. I did not understand French. But overall, I wish there is some kind of a better way of doing that or expecting something with a new teacher in the classroom. And I would say that probably it's also a cultural thing because they're not really, I would say, patient, or they don't have the patience or the people skill to really like guide a person. I remember on my second year on my first school, and even after the following years, the very new teachers would thank me because I went out and beyond to help them, to guide them. And that's something that they appreciated about me because no one in the management or in the team leadership has done what I have done in guiding them. Because for me, I put myself in their shoes when I was, starting. And so they really appreciated how I told them that's where this is like how their day starts. That's where they would find things. Okay. And our teacher materials are all here, printers slash everything. So they appreciated that. And I wish there's some sort of improvement when it comes to guiding, assisting first year teachers, even if they already have years of experience. Kasi, again, it's a new environment. Everything is new as well. We have no clue of like where do you put this and that, materials, whatever. So you have to give us some slack. Okay. And I think based from what I have experienced as well, being a minority, being as someone who's not French, it was also a bit of a challenge to really be a part of the group, although I did try my best to collaborate and to be a team player. I really tried my best. But at the end of the day, if you feel like you've done as much as expected of you or more, then you have done your job well. Which leads me to salary and benefits. Okay. So if you're starting here in Europe or in France, the starting salary for teachers are around 25 to 28K per year. We have 3 months paid holidays, as I've said earlier. So 2 months for summer and 2 weeks of staggered holidays within the term. Our health and life insurance is covered by our employer, which is the school. And then we get 50% paid transportation with our Navigo Pass. If you take the metro here in Paris, you have to take the metro every day because it's the most convenient transport you can take going wherever in the city. So it's called Navigo Pass. And so 50% of that is being paid by the employer, or in our case, from the school. And then we get a free lunch in the school. We don't have, I think like some schools would offer lunch stub. It's like a check of probably around 200 euros a month, for your lunch. But in our case, we get only free lunch in the school. So those are the salaries and benefits. So now, ano yung ma-advise ko if you're a Filipino looking for a teaching job here in Paris or in France? First and foremost, you have to have, how do I say, not just the confidence, but really, I guess, thick skin. It's very important kasi like, based from what I've experienced, it was a bit of a challenge coming from or getting into a team, getting into a school environment where probably 90% are French speakers or French teachers. So it's different. But saying that, you also have to still ask yourself, what is your why? Whenever I start any kind of job, when it comes to my teaching or any project like this one, I always ask myself, ano bang bakit ko? What is my why? Kasi if I don't have my why, I don't think I would really stay in a job, or I don't think I would really be happy. So for me, it has always been, I love teaching. I love being in a school environment, being surrounded by children, because I grew up with a family of teachers. I grew up seeing my aunts and my mother being in a school environment, having to see them really teach a classroom, really teach a community. I love that. So when I came here, I have that. I have always been passionate about teaching. I would even spend my own money buying materials, and I don't mind that. I did not mind spending my own money, having to put on even more time in the school just to prepare my class, just to prepare my materials for the next day or for the weeks to come. So, having to say that, my advice is really, will you love teaching? Will you be happy to be in an environment where everything is so foreign, but at the same time, it still feels like that is something that you're called for, or that is something that you feel like it's your calling, it's your passion, or it's your journey. So that was that. I have to admit, this year, I stopped working or teaching in a classroom. I do work now part-time as a teacher in a center. And it was because my previous school said that basically they kind of let me go because they said like I didn't fit the team, I didn't fit the school. But it was a very shocking way of being on the receiving end of such news, because I feel like I've put so much of my time, my energy, and even my financial resources into the job. And I know that I love how, or personally, I know that I've done so much more, because when it comes to English teaching, my kids or my students were able to speak English or understand English just 3 months later. 3 months after my teaching. But anyway, having to say that, I have yet to find an environment or a team wherein you're very much welcome, you're very much guided, and a management or a leadership where they see that if you're struggling, they will automatically give help, they will automatically give assistance. But I didn't see that. Right now, I'm happier where I am. I'm putting my podcast into to a light of like having to inspire many of you fellow Filipinos who are also struggling in their work, in their job. But I want you to know that when it's time for you to go, let it go. When the job is really right for you, you will feel right, diba? And I know personally for me, if I don't belong in a place where I'm not appreciated, where I'm not valued, I know when to let go. I know when to say goodbye. I know when to find my own space somewhere else. And that has always been my prayer. And I know that God has always been guiding me and protecting me in everything that I do. And for that, I'm just really grateful for the experience, really grateful for the people I met, really grateful for those who have, taught me, who has helped me in my journey here as a teacher. And obviously I learned a lot. And I hope that you too, wherever you are, will also find that guidance, that kind of assistance in your own way. And sana kung ano man yung naibigay ko sa inyo na pinagdaanan ko dito or how I ended up having to find a teaching job, I hope that it will also inspire you or help you to probably start looking for one. Right now, I'm doing like auto entrepreneurship. I partnered up with a person who owns a center, and then I am doing his English program. And for me, I am still teaching. I am in a space where I know I am my most authentic and most genuine self, and I'm happy. And for that, I'm just really grateful. And so I hope that this story and journey of myself, how I found my teaching jobs or how I ended up teaching in here in Paris would also be of help to you. So that's it for the first episode. Thank you for taking your time to listen. Again, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you download your podcast. Just click on Positively Pinoys podcast. This is a podcast for OFW stories that you can take inspirations from. Maraming salamat, mabuhay, and see you on the next episode.